And this is Jenn Gray, and welcome to Be Genuine Podcast. It is my heart that by the end of this episode, you believe that your story matters and that your authenticity is your superpower.
Welcome to the stage, Jenn Gray.
Oh, hold that thought. All right, friends, have you ever moved? You guys know how crazy, insanely stressful that can be. And I have a podcast partner that absolutely is a solution to this problem. If you are moving anywhere near the Atlanta area, you guys have got to call these guys. There is a company that genuinely makes the process as stress-free as possible. Atlanta Pack and Load boasts nearly 30 years of experience providing customized packing, moving, and storage solutions. They are fully licensed, fully insured, Better Business Bureau accredited, and the trusted moving partner for realtors all over Georgia. Call today for a free quote and make sure you let them know that you heard them right here on Be Genuine Podcast. 770-779-8959 or find them online. All of their info will be in the show notes. Move the smart way. Move the pack and load way. Hi, friends. Welcome to the podcast episode for today. I am super excited for the guest I get to introduce to you today. I am excited to welcome Rob to the Be Genuine podcast. He is the CEO of TAPS Coaching and creator of the Prime Performance Program. Rob is on a mission to help driven professionals unlock their full potential by blending both personal development and business growth. With a master's in exercise science and top-tier certifications, he takes a unique approach to success, one that prioritizes self-awareness, intentional action, and sustainable progress. Rob's work breaks through barriers of uncertainty and stagnation, guiding entrepreneurs toward physical vitality, mindful habits, and strong support networks. As a dynamic speaker, he delivers powerful insights that help individuals align their personal strengths with their professional goals. Whether he's coaching high-level entrepreneurs or emerging leaders, Rob Tracz is passionate about helping people elevate every aspect of their lives, both in business and beyond. I can't wait for this conversation. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Hey, Jen, thank you so much. And thank you for that incredible introduction. It makes me feel warm and you nailed that. And I'm excited to be here. This is going to be awesome.
Awesome. I was so excited too. The power of social media, right? Getting to connect with like-minded leaders. And I believe that change happens when we start to see vulnerability, right? I think our vulnerability and our story builds bridges to other people and gives people hope. And so I would love for you to share your story. What are you doing now? How did you get here? You can start from childhood if you want to, or for last year. But I would love for you to share, again, what all you do and what got you to where you're doing.
All right. So I'll just kind of dive right in, I guess. As you kind of alluded to in the intro there, I am a prime performance strategist. So I help other individuals overcome stagnation and uncertainty so that they can kind of level up in life and business. Mostly working with entrepreneurs, but able to kind of dive in and help whoever kind of fits perfectly with me. Much like anything else in the world, nothing's ever a perfect fit with everything. So it's not a one size fits all. So I'm not the greatest cup of tea for everybody, but for those who do connect and relate to my stories and my experiences and my situations, we do have a lot of fun while we level up and get to that next stages in our careers and businesses too. But in order for me to kind of dive into what I'm doing now, it is better for me to kind of start back where it all kind of began, and to not eat up too much time. My background is in strength and conditioning. Being a coach was an easy pivot for myself, because my parents got divorced when I was in a young age. That caused a lot of trauma from being a child kind of situation, moving around a lot. It was difficult to make and maintain friendships. So sports really became my new family, my new home. And when I first got involved with sports, I was the worst athlete possible. I'm talking like I showed up to football practice wearing jeans, and you learn a couple of things that when you do that. One, you learn to show up prepared and start to prepare yourself. But then also sports, you got to be a little athletic. You got to be able to move your body a little bit. And I was struggling. It was tough for me to even just keep up for the warm-up laps in the beginning. But I stuck with that. I continued to pay attention to those warm-ups, the push-ups, the sit-ups, those little routines. And then I would begin to practice those at home. And the more that I would practice those, a little bit better I got, a little bit faster, a little bit stronger here and there. And then that led to a little bit more playing time. And the more that I started to play, the more friends that I would have on the teams. And the more friends I'd have, the more birthday parties I'd get invited to. And my mom made sure that if I was going to his birthday parties, I had to make sure my grades were on point as well. So really fitness and sports really became the gateway for myself in personal development. And as I continued to play more sports and play at a higher level and stronger competitions, I began to pay attention to different things like my nutrition and habits and things like that. And that really got the cogs rolling or spinning in my brain for personal development. And after shifting into that coaching role allowed me to still stay in touch with different sports teams, working with other groups of athletes, working together towards a common goal. And because the gym was so familiar for me, it made it easy for me to connect and relate with others. And working with athletes at a high level really forced me to kind of take my craft to the next level, paying attention to what I needed to do to make sure that I continued to show up as the best version of myself. And from there, I got into the private sector. In strength and conditioning, you have two different avenues you typically go down. You either go collegiate and try to get into professionals, or you go private and try to make a little bit more money with your own facility and such. And in the private sector, it gave me that first taste of entrepreneurship. It allowed me to choose my schedule, work with the athletes that I wanted to work with, and really take on as much as I wanted to. And in that time period, I was just looking to make more money, make more income, and just wore that like a badge of honor, constantly working, filling my schedule up with as many sessions as I possibly could. And in that time period, I got really good at working, like a lot of us do.
Right.
You learn to get more efficient. You learn to squeeze every minute out of your day and making sure that you're still moving. And that constant busyness was disguised because I thought that I was being productive. I thought I was making more money, making a bigger impact. But what I was really doing is I was closing myself off. I was stuck at so many sessions a day. It's really hard to work more than 15 hours a day when you're working with other athletes. Right. So having 15 different athletes 7 days a week for 3 years, you don't have much room for growth other than where you're at right there. So in that period, I lost a lot of myself, because I couldn't work out myself. I couldn't learn. I couldn't take care of my health. And if I can't take care of my health and if I can't take care of myself, I couldn't take care of my other relationships. The girl that I was dating, my family even. I was working holidays because I was just dedicating everything I had to my clients. And in that time period, my father got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And I decided to keep working with my clients instead of spending time with him. And it didn't hit me until about a year after he had passed that this isn't the life that I want to be living. I don't even recognize myself anymore. So I needed to take a few steps back and really, really reflect on what it is that I wanted to be doing. How did I originally start to have some success? And I had to revisit everything. And when I looked through a different lens there, I realized that for me, my coaching was going to be much more than just teaching squat patterns and deadlifts and talking about nutrition. I knew that it was a little bit more. And I'd spent my whole life kind of absorbing these different habits and these different tips and tricks from a lot of these great mastermind individuals, from all the leaders and leadership books and all the biohacking books and podcasts and things like that. I started to reflect on these things and I started to package it together. And then eventually it would start to take a little bit of shape and I could see some things starting to form. And then I started helping other individuals and I started putting some time out there and started getting on some stages and sharing some of my experiences and the things that I went through and how I started to optimize different things. And then I began to notice that a few people started to benefit from it. I was helping others change their lives around so that they could continue to do the things that they really wanted to do. And then a couple more people started reaching out and then touching base with a few more people and a couple more stages here and there, a few more podcasts. Next thing I know, I've got this thing going, but I don't actually have a thing going. So that's when I needed to change a lot of what I was doing and kind of pivot my career a little bit and change my approach with coaching and things like that. And now that landed me here, speaking to you, your audience, sharing a little bit of my experience and story. And hopefully at the end of our conversation today, a couple other people are going to at least be able to connect on a couple of things that we talk about and maybe take home a couple strategies on how they can improve in one way or another with their lives.
I love that so much. So many things I want to dive through. So first of all, let's rewind back to you jumping into entrepreneurial. You said you took your coaching, you did all of that, and then you end up going into the entrepreneurial world. I think so many of my listeners, and because I've heard feedback, they're in some type of pivot, right? They're needing to take that leap and take that jump. And like you said, figure out what sect they're going, whatever lane they're running in, whether it's betting on themselves and going for their own program or going to work for corporate, whatever that looks like in their lane. What do you think was the trigger or the reason or the courage, maybe even that just it took for you to decide, I'm going to go down this path called entrepreneurship? And what were your biggest surprises when you took that route?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I knew from an early age that a typical 9 to 5 job with like just this regular salary wasn't going to work for me. I was doing my first internship in college, and I was busting it hard. I was mopping the floors like 3 times a day, making sure all the weights were lined up. Everything was perfect, pristine condition. And as soon as my internship ended and that facility invited me to come on as one of the coaches, one of the managers, that I was going to get a salaried job, everything, all my motivation, everything just tanked. And then I remember just noticing like, oh man, everything started getting a lot harder for myself. Like, I'm so tired. I don't want to do this. I don't necessarily need to. I'll push it off. And then after a little while, I kind of was like, man, this place is a little bit different. This is not the same as it used to be. And then I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, that's on me. Like, that's not who I am. Every sports team, every team I've ever been a part of, I've always found myself in some sort of a leadership role, whether that's a captain or just one of the higher performers. So I'm not a stranger to working hard. I'm not a stranger to the grind. And when I realized that, I started to change a little bit. I knew I needed to make a pivot, and I could never really stay in a comfort little job here. And that was the first sign that one of my motivations, one of my drives is in adversity. So as being an adversity drive, I need a little bit of a challenge. So when there's nothing for me to shoot for, my gas starts to slow down. So that's where I needed to make sure that I started setting personal metrics for myself on different things, even regardless of whether or not my job was expecting it. I needed to start setting milestones for myself to dive into. And that right there was the very beginning part where I started to pay attention, like, oh, I need to learn to change my things. And I think that was the undertone of entrepreneurship kind of behind it, because many entrepreneurs, you need to have some kind of drive. A lot of us are out here and we really only eat what we kill.
Right.
And to me, that makes it exciting because I like that challenge. But then also my other drives really are achievement. So making sure that I do hit the things that I'm shooting for, but then also unity too. So achieving that success with others. And then that's really like, without me knowing it, but I knew that I was going to be a coach and I was going to be working with others to help them achieve the goals that they're trying to get to.
I love that. So I know we talked about this the first time that we spoke, the whole idea of like looking at yourself in the mirror and being really honest with yourself. I think a lot of times our culture, you can either look for an excuse or you can look for a reason. And if you're looking for an excuse not to do something or looking for a reason of why it's, outside of your control, like you'll find it, but you don't learn from it. You're not growing from it. You don't take ownership from it. And so just like that, like saying, I'm going to look at myself in the mirror and know in seasons and times of my life, what's working, when I need to pivot, when I need to change altogether. And you mentioned about your dad and how that was a huge catalyst of, again, looking yourself in the mirror and saying, ultimately, to put different words in your mouth, like, what legacy am I going to leave? Like, what kind of life am I actually going to live? And I had a very shared experience as well, right? Different for me. I've had 4 kids, or still have 4 kids. And I had to decide, like, is the life I'm living, am I headed in the direction that I want to? And one of my favorite Ed Milet wake up calls is, he says the biggest form of neglect as a parent is for a parent not to chase their dreams. And also I knew that I still wanted to be the kind of mom that was room mom that showed up. So I have to be an entrepreneur to build what I want to build and to build it around what's powerful for me. And so you mentioned your dad kind of shifted that for you. What were some of those things? I usually call those core values. I think that was you getting back to your core values. What would you say for someone else that's maybe even in this same position where they don't like where they are, or they don't like how they feel about even what's going on around them? What did you have to lean into? And you said that you looked in the mirror and you made that change. What did you have to shift, or what kind of wake up call did that really look like in that pivot?
It was like really after my dad had passed, I kind of buried myself further into my work and I just kind of kept grinding. And then it was about a year after he had passed, and and I was actually denied my schedule. A lot of people were traveling, and I had an open weekend, which was so weird to just not have anything to do on the weekend. So for me to step back and be like, whoa, is this what normal people do? They take the weekends off and they just kind of chill. It was the first time I had a day off in almost 3 years. So I was sitting and I was like, what am I going to do on Saturday? And I was like bugging out, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was like thinking like, what do people normally do on Fridays? And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, people probably go out, they hang out with friends. And I'm like, oh yeah, I used to do that all the time in college and even with my dad. And then I realized like, oh, I kind of started thinking about my dad a little bit more, and how he was always shooting for retirement. He was always excited to get there. And he would always say how he was going to be doing it so soon, but he wanted to just try to make sure that my sister and I were set up at least, or at least had some sort of help if we needed to. And so he continued to work just in case if we ever needed anything. And the way that his contract for his job was, and the way that the cancer came in, he tried to file the paperwork for retirement. And because he had passed away before his first retirement check, I guess he technically still passed away like on the job or something. And because he never remarried, pretty much his entire 30 plus year pension and all this other stuff like went right back to the company. So my sister and I didn't get to see any of that. So then I was like, what was he working so hard for if my sister and I don't even get to see any of that? And then I realized that there needs to be a way to still enjoy what I'm doing and still be able to live the life I want to live. And then that's when I needed to kind of dive into my values and kind of figure things out, because I've taken tons of business courses and a lot of other things, and everyone's always talking about core values and values this and values that. And I had to think back like, okay, well, I don't even know what that means. Like, what are my values? What do I live by? And in that process, I kind of worked it through and found 4 things that I really stand by. And I'm a huge acronym guy. So I use the acronym PACE, PACE. And this is for me personally. P is progress towards mastery. So making sure that I'm always pushing to get a little bit better on whatever I'm working on. A is adventure. So whatever project or whatever job or whatever I'm doing at the time, I want to make sure that I'm having fun, because if I'm not having fun, then I don't know what I'm doing it for. The third letter, C, is contribution. So making sure that I'm giving myself to everybody that I possibly can, but still making sure that I'm not giving too much. So I'm giving where I can give. And the last letter, E, is embody freedom. So making sure that I'm not being pressured into any decisions that I don't necessarily want to. I want to make sure that I keep my autonomy and I'm the one who's making the decisions on the different things that I'm doing. And then from that really helped me kind of start to pick and choose on different decisions. And that really helped me kind of guide my process. And it was tough because until I really established those values, it was hard for me to make decisions. So awareness is really key there.
Oh, 100%. And I love that so much, because we can have these big dreams and big goals, right? But we can get lost in how we're going to get there. And that was something that I found when I first jumped into personal development. And unfortunately, I was much older than you were when you found personal development. And I learned very quickly that it is so powerful that success leaves clues, but also there's some success I don't want to exemplify. Like, I don't want to grow a business like they're growing a business. And so identifying leaders that I want to follow was so huge. And, it's like I found a couple and they became like my litmus test. And I'm like, okay, if they align with them, then because like you just said, even like doing things together and finding people who you can build this with in alignment, I think is so massive and such a gift to be able to find people that are even running in a similar lane and get to collaborate with and get to grow together and, and all of that. And so I absolutely love that. So going back to your whole journey into deciding to coach. I'm going to assume something, and you tell me if I'm wrong, or maybe it's just me. Did you ever from the outside or even an internal dialogue say, why are you going to start another podcast? Why are you going to be a coach? There's tons of coaches out there. Like all those kind of like imposter type conversations happen all the time. I know when I started a podcast, people were trying to be supportive, and yet they were like, do you really have time to do that? Because do you really need to? There's like millions of those already in existence. So did you ever receive any feedback like that? Anybody ever, or even inside wonder if there was space for what you were doing? All right, friends, one quick thing before we jump in today's episode. I am so crazy excited to shout from the rooftops. Our podcast partners, our first partner is Dr. John D. Ambrosio. He is the owner, CEO, mastermind behind the Center for Life Enhancement. If you are anywhere within driving distance of Atlanta, Georgia, or you want to hop in an airplane, it's legitimately worth it. He helps people achieve optimal health and function through a unique whole body approach to chiropractic care. At the Center for Life Enhancement, he utilizes wellness stacking, combining biocharger, gentle yet precise chiropractic adjustments, zone technique and cranial release, and brain tap to restore balance and enhance the body's natural ability to heal. His focus is on optimizing function, helping clients move, feel, and live better every day.
Yeah, I mean, like all different angles too. So like family members, close friends, and like everybody, they come to you and they're like, oh, are you sure that you want to be doing this or that? Or do you think that's a right fit for you? And from their perspective, they're just looking to try to protect us. They want to make sure that they're looking out for us. But I look at it through a different lens. Like I love doing the podcast. I love going on other people's podcasts and sharing stuff because I have fun with it. Right. So it's that adventure thing. And I'm not looking to like monetize my podcast into this thing where that's my sole thing. I'm doing it because I want to share other people's stories too. I'm trying to connect and collaborate and make a bigger impact and do things together with other people. And in the coaching realm, I just always kind of found myself gravitating towards coaching and kind of leading and teaching and showing. And for the longest time, like I was internal, like everything was going, it was tough because although strength and conditioning and nutrition, all that stuff is the background, my background, that's not necessarily who I am. So I always kind of felt like, okay, I'm here preaching, like you got to eat a little healthier, you got to do this. But then at the same time, like I'm a meatball eating champion. I won a meatball eating competition. I got this huge belt. I placed second in this donut eating competition. I love all you can eat sushi. So I love eating and I love doing all these different things. And I like going out for drinks with friends and things like that. And for a while I was like, man, do I have to play this guy who's like super healthy all the time? And like, that's what I have to do. And I realized that's not me. So when I made the shift into more intentional consumption, paying attention to different seasons and why I'm fueling or why I'm doing different things, that really helped me drop some of that imposter phenomenon and really allowed me to kind of lean into my authentic self, which really then shows up everywhere else once you can fully and confidently lean into yourself.
Yeah. Well, I love that answer. And I had a feeling you would answer it that way. That's so true. And that's the encouragement that I love for anyone to hear over and over and over and over and over again, is we all have those same thoughts. But like you just said, it's flipping that lens. And it's like, no, I'm not going to reach everybody. That's not our goal, right? Like, as you even said, as we started, you have certain people who are going to connect and they need you to help guide them from point A to point B. And one of my favorite things I just heard recently at a conference, and it talked about like a coach or a speaker, and we're not like the solution to someone's problem. We're a guide that's helping someone get somewhere faster and safer. And knowing what you can provide and how you can help somebody, and then trusting that you're going to connect and align with the right people. And that's who you're supposed to help. And so like you just said, I'm the same way. I'm like an add value junkie, right? Like people are like, how do you have time? I'm like, I don't even think of it like that. Like this feeds my soul at such a deep level because the result is impact. And whenever there's fulfillment on both sides, right? When a listener has those light bulb moments and their life is forever changed because they see their world in a different level, right? When we can like ignite their ambition and remind them, you are the hero of your world. I'm going to give you some tools to help you crush the goals that you have, and getting to capture that. I think that when you capture that, it's like even when you talk about like social media and you go live and like you're just talking to a camera. I always encourage people, I'm like, no. You got to think of one person that you're talking to, right? And so I love that even with your journey and you knowing, hey, I have a unique journey that's brought me to here with unique perspectives that got me here. And those unique things are going to connect me to the people who I'm supposed to coach. And again, if you focus on all the people that we aren't reaching, that's a really horrible space to be in. But just focus on being in your lane, being authentic. You use my word, be authentic to who you are. And then you're going to build a business around the value that you can bring, which is the biggest gift to anybody. When instead of you trying to be somebody else and trying to teach somebody else's 5-step program instead of just actually, coaching in the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you had said as you jumped into that, you were talking about lenses and perspectives and such, and how connecting with different audiences and such. I'll never forget when I first started getting into speaking, and I'm inviting all my friends to all these different events that I'm going to and such. And I was working with a friend who they thought they were doing me a favor by working with me, and then I was doing them a favor, and neither of us were really connecting. And I just got off the stage, and somebody else had gone up, and they were talking, and I was sitting next to my buddy, who was also a client at the time. And he was like, wow, did you hear so-and-so when they said X, Y, and Z? That really like blew my mind. And I was like, dude, that's literally the same exact thing that I said. And that's the same thing that I'm always talking to you about. He goes, oh, no, but he said it differently. And then in that moment, my brain was just like, because I was so looking through the world in this competition lens, like, oh, everybody, blah, 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 blah. But that flipped the switch into more of like a collaborative lens. And now seeing how, I might not be the best fit for somebody, or somebody else might say the same thing, but they can connect on a different level than I can. And that's when I realized, like, this competition thing, it doesn't even really exist. Like, I'm still in a market for myself. Like, I'm out there looking to find other friends and make new friends for people who connect with me. I'm not trying to steal them away from other people. And then that just was like, whoa. And then all of a sudden there's so much new business everywhere because I'm not so fixed on, oh, somebody else is going to steal this client, or, oh, this person doesn't want to work with me, kind of thing. And that just, you drop the weight from those perspectives. And now you can go spend more time and energy doing the things that you really care about with the people that really connect with you.
yeah. Totally. No, I love that so much. Okay, so I've got to ask you this because this is totally your lane. One thing that was huge for me in my journey of like rebuilding became my morning routine, and my fitness journey became just as much mental health as it was anything physical health. And so many times when I speak to leaders of any kind and I talk to them, just right, again, I can only speak into what worked for me. That is the biggest pushback, is when I mention like 5 a.m., then you have one side of the room that's like, I will never do 5 a.m. And I'm like, okay, challenge accepted. Like I'm going to convince you that this will be life changing. But how do you see it? I mean, your whole life's work is in body and mind space, right? And the fact that it's all connected, and to be healthy, full, holistically, we've got to have that physical element. So how would you encourage that entrepreneur or even leader of any kind who is holding tight to that crutch that I'm not the kind of person who works out? What would you say to them, and how to help them maybe shift that lens or be open to a new idea of thinking on the importance of what that whole full mind body connection?
Yeah, it's pretty tough, and feel free to call me out if if you feel like I'm dancing around the answer. But I feel like it's really dependent on the individual, because for me, the working out, that kind of falls into my first principle about building resilience. So it's easy to look at exercise and you can see that it's helping build physical resilience and physical strength. But then looking at it from a different lens of like, it also helps with your mental resilience. It helps you build discipline. It helps build confidence. It helps on so many other levels. And I love the gym, one, because it's my background, but two, because it's such a low barrier of entry to get into some form of discomfort, whether it is lifting weights or if it's doing cardio or swimming or something. It's super easy to just go in and try to do something that you've never done before, whether that's more reps, more weight, new exercise, new whatever it may be. So I think everybody should kind of do some way of pushing themselves. And if they're not like really working out, it's not a thing for them. It's kind of diving in a little bit deeper. Like, okay, well, what is your expectation for working out? Because some people think you got to go to the gym for 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, but it doesn't have to be that way. Like if you look at it from the lens of, okay, you're just going to push yourself to get yourself a little bit better. Can you dedicate 15 minutes? Can you dedicate 5 minutes? Can you just do one like circuit of a couple of different exercises? What can you do? And if they can't do anything, maybe it's time to pivot to maybe challenging something a little bit differently. Can you do like a cold plunge or like a cold shower, or maybe just getting up a little bit earlier, maybe not 5 a.m., but maybe like depending on like 5 minutes earlier, 15 minutes earlier. Can you push yourself to get through that discomfort and just get up a little bit earlier so you have a little bit more time to do something else? So then maybe you can try exercising later in the day. It kind of depends on the individual, but It's working with them and figuring out what works.
I love that. No, and your answer is perfect because you hit the nail on the head, and I love that. It's about building resilience, and ultimately, that's where the mental health probably for me. So as I'm rebuilding, all I'm doing is putting this hardcore like former jail serving militant kind of guy in my ear as I'm doing burpees and I'm taking a cold shower and I'm trying to remind myself by 6 a.m. every day I can do hard things because in that season of life, like I had to be reminded, like, Jen, this sucks. Like you're going to have to do hard things. And I saw how it literally got me out of a funk. And so when I start to see people in a funk, I love what you just said. Find something where it just gets you out of your comfort zone, where you have to push yourself a little bit further. Maybe it's business related. Maybe it is working out. Maybe it's drinking more water. Maybe it's going for a walk for 5 minutes in between meetings instead of just, snacking in the pantry and, doing something to, again, remind yourself of the resiliency and the strength that you have inside of you. Because I think if anybody, that entrepreneurs need to be reminded, the boats are burned. Like you can do this. The only way you're going to fail is if you give up. And the way that you keep getting through it is if you just keep building this, because it is hard. And that's why I'm very open on this podcast about, because if you're struggling, I want you to hear weekly, I'm not alone. Like this entrepreneur world is so life-giving and brings so much freedom, and also is the hardest thing you will ever do because you're having to bet on yourself and you're having to just chase your dreams and figure it out and struggle and, do a lot for free while you build up the clientele and things like that. But I think that that's huge is again, building this, whatever that looks like.
Whew, that was fire. Whew, that was good. Yeah, so true. So true.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur when I jumped in this world. I watched my dad fail at it and I'm like, I know what not to do, and then I was like, man, then you walk into some rooms and I'm like, these people like have their whole lives figured out and they like don't struggle. And that's where, so my message of like vulnerability and authenticity, just like what you're saying in your world, it's building a life. And the way you're doing that is by ultimately connecting to people. And the more human that we are, the more impact that we can make. And I don't know anybody on the planet who doesn't feel their cup filled by getting to use their life to be able to add value to somebody else. Okay. So if you weren't doing this, what else would you do?
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know if I was to start all over and just throw me out there. I don't know. I'd have to kind of feel out the environment and see where I'm at and what I'm doing, because I think I'm going to end up coming back to something along the same lines of connecting with people and helping others out and working towards things. I mean, if it wasn't for myself, I'd be helping somebody else. And because I don't know. So that's a tough question, but I feel like I would still navigate myself back to some form of coaching and teaching and kind of just helping other people out and growing and getting to different levels.
So good. Okay. So let's talk about your actual work. I know we'll wrap up here in the next few minutes, but how could somebody identify whether they're in the right season or where you would be a good fit for them? Just kind of whether it be describing your ideal client or maybe some certain things that people are struggling with, and those make really, really good clients for you to be able to help. Just so anyone listening here can kind of see, oh, you know what? Rob may be exactly the solution to how I'm feeling right now, and I could use him to help me get there safer and faster. So what does that look like in your world?
Yeah, most people, I mean, so as you kind of mentioned it too, just a second ago, talking about getting into other rooms and how everybody seemed to have everything kind of all pieced together. I see that all the time when I go to different networking events and conferences. Everybody's business is constantly booming and exploding and growing, and everybody's doing super well all the time. But nobody ever wants to really admit when they are going through those harder times. And for me, like the best people to work with are those who are confident enough to kind of admit that they are not necessarily going through hard times. Maybe they are going through hard times, but they're going through some sort of a challenge. There is something in the way. The people who benefit the most from coaching and working with me, they know that there's something that needs to change for them to get to the next level. It could be something as simple as like, hey, I'm lacking a lot of energy. I feel like like I can't get through my full work day. I've got these long hours and I don't feel motivated or energized enough to get through. Or maybe it's somebody is like, hey, I'm feeling super isolated. Like I'm doing X, Y, and Z in my business, and I don't know how to connect with other individuals. I don't know where to find other people that are around. And sometimes it's just working on a little bit of self-influence and social capital and how to build those things up. And that can be an avenue for individuals. But ultimately, the people who benefit the most are those who know that there's something a little bit off. And to help people with that, I created a quiz that kind of shows you, hey, because my coaching is all around the six principles of prime performance. You take the quiz, it's like an archetype personality quiz. It tells you your strongest suit, but then also it shows you the area where you might need to spend a little more advice on. And then that's good because people, they can come, they take the quiz, then they can get that little bit of insight, and then they don't even need coaching. They can just kind of go on and be like, boom, I need to dial in on this. But then there are others who are like, yeah, I already knew that actually. Like, how do I create more opportunity? I feel like I'm missing opportunity after opportunity, and I feel like I'm not getting any traction. So then they come and talk to me like, hey, this is what's going on. How do we step this up? How do we get that traction? And or the same situation where they don't know their values and they're just kind of aimlessly going through because this is what they think they're supposed to be doing, or this is what they think they should be shooting for. And similar type of thing with those individuals too, is really gaining that clarity and figuring that thing out too.
I love that. I love that you customize it to the person that you're talking to. You know the principles, right? You have the framework in which you know what's going to help, but then you also, it seems very relational, which, sometimes it's just like, oh, here, join my, again, 5-step program, and I've got it all laid out, and you have to fit to the program. But I love how it sounds like you fit the program to the person and finding out their pain points, finding out maybe they need to focus on the fitness side. So, hey, and if you are one of those people who, when I say the morning routine or the 5 a.m., Rob may be a great starting point to have someone who's going to listen to where you're at and then also guide you into where you want to go. And that's the power of a coach, right? That's the power of just someone else that can navigate just the voices in your head. I mean, sometimes I feel like my journal entries were the only outlet. And so to actually have my own coach was so huge, to be able to have those kind of conversations, because there's something powerful that happens in that mastermind type situation where you reach these new conclusions and these new ideas that you wouldn't have been able to on your own. And that's the beauty of aligning with like-minded people. So last question for you, Rob. The key to this podcast is authenticity. And I believe that our authenticity is our superpower. And so for you and your world, how would you agree or disagree with the statement that your authenticity is your superpower?
I agree with it. Because when you lean into who you actually are, it energizes you and it helps you make better decisions. It helps you connect with other individuals who are going to help you grow. And when you lean into that, the more opportunities appear, and it's just, you move so much more efficiently with that. So I 100% believe that to the T.
I love it. And I could tell you've thrown the word around. And again, it's one of those buzzwords, but when you really connect to it and you understand what it's like to genuinely be all of who you are and give people all of who you are, and knowing that that's enough. In fact, it's more than enough for somebody else to be able to learn from. I know that's your sweet spot, for sure. So Rob, tell us where we can find you. Where's the best place for someone after this to be able to connect with you? What kind of resources are out there? Where can we find you?
Yeah, the easiest place to find me is social media. I hang out mostly on Instagram and LinkedIn. Okay. Great sources. And so like I said, that free archetype quiz is out there. And then also check me out on my podcast over at Surviving the Side Hustle, where, similar to your show here, where we interview other experts. Hopefully got you on the show coming up soon.
So excited for it. Yes.
Yeah. And that's where I'm usually hanging out. So open for questions. If anybody has anything that we kind of talked about, they're looking for more information on any of my different frameworks or things like that. Or even if you like the episode, like, let me know that you heard this and you're a great follower of Jenn's here, because I'd love to hear that too. Make sure that I'm doing a good job for other people.
Yeah, no, I love that. You guys definitely make sure you connect. In the show notes, I'll have all the details, so you can just click and follow him really easily, and find all his things. So thank you so much, Rob, for joining. Thank you for your work and for the passion that you bring to the industry. It's been great to be able to connect with you and to learn again how you help people. And so you guys, thank you guys so much for hopping on and for being a part of this episode. And I want you to know today that I believe in you and I love you. And that may sound super crazy because I don't know you, but I think it's more crazy that people hate people for no reason. So I will choose to love you for no reason until we meet and I find the millions of reasons there are. So you guys have an amazing week and y'all keep being genuine.